Welcome back to the Modern Firm Podcast. John and Darren with you as always, but also a special guest. I'll say hey to Darren first. What's going on?
I am super excited. Well, I'm off to Florida tomorrow, or Sunday, I guess. This one's actually work, so that's a good thing. Lots of meetings, but I'm super excited about our guest today. So this is going to be a lot of fun. I'll let you introduce him, John.
Yeah, let's just jump right in. It's interesting that the people that we work with over the years in the accounting profession become friends really quickly. Almost all of them, but some of them become closer friends. And our guest today has become a really good friend of mine. Our relationship has gone from conversations around business to our daughters both play volleyball. We have faith conversations. We have business conversations. We have mental health conversations. And today I'm excited to see where all of those conversations take us. But I'll introduce Terry Offenberger, friend of mine, one of the best accounting firm owners I know, one of the most modern thinking, forward thinking, small businesses that I work with. And he is based in Dayton, Ohio, and I don't want to share too much because I want him to share a little bit. So, Terry, it's great to have you today and look forward to a conversation.
Thank you, and thanks for all those kind words. I guess the payoff worked, huh?
That's right.
I've
been fully paid
John,
off.
Terry, just a little bit. I hope you didn't.
He's got a pretty low bar. Yeah.
Hey, Terry, let's start like I don't already know, but just for our listeners, let's start by telling me a little bit about the firm, where you're located, kind of what your specialty is, and a little bit just about the status.
Sure.
How's the firm going?
Yes, our firm we're in Dayton, Ohio. Dayton's 45 minutes, north of Cincinnati. And it's, Dayton's had a rough go at it when some of the auto workers and the, GM and Chrysler shut things down probably 20 some years ago, early in my career. Well, my career's been longer than that, but we've been on the rebound and we're coming back. So, this firm, we're in the second generation of ownership. And I had a small practice and I merged mine into this one in 2015. And then about a year later, we started retiring some of the partners. We retired the two final founding partners, another person, and then a fourth one because of health reasons unexpectedly. So it was a lot, it was like drinking out of a fire hose there for a while, but they're great people. When I met these folks, I knew there were some things we needed to work on, but the people were great people. It's one of those feelings, kind of in your gut that it's going to work out. And in terms of, a specialty, our most well-known niche is, we're close to Wright-Patterson Air Force Base here in Dayton. And one of my partners has experience with DCAA in that government contracting space. And we have a lot of government contractor clients here that we work with.
Terry, how many staff do you guys have now?
Yeah, right now, about 28 FTEs, 27, 28.
So good size firm,
Yeah.
Dayton, Ohio. Are you guys getting much from the Columbus area at all? How far, with everything that's going on up in Columbus?
Yeah, I'll tell you, if you drive from, we just did that this weekend. We went to pick up my daughter in Morgantown to bring her home from WVU. Where they're building that chip factory, you could see some of that off of 70. It's the largest construction, the building that I've ever seen. Like it looks like 25 Walmarts, in one space. But yeah, we're about an hour and a half, hour 15 from Columbus. We do have a small practice over in the Lancaster area, which is about 15, 20 minutes from there. So my brother actually is a principal with us, and we've got a little space over there. And so we're seeing some of that happen. But yeah, it's exciting.
Nice. Terry, right now, what are the biggest challenges you guys are facing?
Yeah.
In the midst of a new way to work, in the midst of just the pressure on accounting firms to meet the demand in the communities, what are your big challenges?
Yeah, I mean, staffing has been a challenge over the years, but we feel like we're in a pretty good spot right now. That seems to be loosening up. Um, I think you know everyone's challenges are probably specific to their own situation, and so I think the thing that one of the things I spend a lot of time thinking about and that I've sort of re-engaged after tax season is succession planning. So, um, I have four partners right now. I have one who wants to retire at the end of 25, and he's a great guy. He spent his whole career here at this firm, and he's really good with relationships and client service and all that. And so, when it's time for him to go away, that's going to be it's going to hurt. And do
Yeah.
we how do we navigate that? And I've been doing this for 30 some years. I've got another 5 or 10 years probably left myself before it's time for me to go. But when I look down the road, and we've got to have a plan for that, and it seems to be
Yeah.
more and more difficult to find 30 somethings or 20 somethings that want to do this as a career. Our profession hasn't done ourselves any favors when it comes to the way that we've treated. I think about Darren's been through this when I started the partner drive in the tax practice at the international firm I worked with. They published every payroll period. They would publish a list of every person and how many hours they worked, and that that created that culture of, well, if I want to succeed, I got to be at the top. And I don't know, things have changed a lot for the good, but I think succession is one of our biggest challenges at the moment.
Terry, you said that staffing's loosening up a little bit for you guys. What do you attribute that to?
Yeah, that's a great question. I don't know if it's technology. It seems like the economy maybe is slowing down a little bit. Interest rates are ticking up. I think, I don't know, 6 or 8 months ago, I got a statement from the bank that said I owed money for interest. I'm like, what is this? And I'm like, well, there's not, that can't be right. Our interest rate's not 7% or whatever the number was at the time. So, I think interest rates are ticking up and that are affecting this a little bit. The bigger firms, from what I read, aren't hiring as much. AI, I'm sure, is entering into this. We used Scan Pro. I forget the name of the term, but we used a scanning service this year for some of our 1040 prep, and it's really slick. And that's probably low hanging fruit from an AI standpoint. But these big firms that have the budgets, to develop the things that are coming, I'm sure that's impacting their need for entry level staff.
So the people that you're sort of finding that you're able to hire more in the professional side of it, or maybe different skill sets, whether they're coming from a non certified type of role. Which one are you seeing?
Yeah, we actually had a little bit of turnover in December unexpectedly, but through a recruiter, we were able to pick up a gal who. The other thing with our location, we're in Dayton and Wright Pat, so there's a little bit of transient folks with the base. Yeah. So, it's not uncommon for us to be able to hire a spouse of someone who's, come into Wright Patterson. And then, there are also times when those people transfer somewhere else and we're able to retain them because of the tech solutions that we have now, with being able to be remote and all that. But we've got another person we're talking to at the moment who's a former teacher. She's been working. She stopped teaching. She's an EA now. She's been at H&R Block for a number of years. But I've also talked to some other firm owners who are having some success with educators, because my wife's a teacher, and education is not what it was. This isn't what she signed up for. It's totally changed, and I don't think it's good for education, but that's a whole nother podcast, I'm sure.
Terry's such a humble guy. He wouldn't say this, and maybe doesn't even see it completely because he's so close to the firm. But part of the reason your staffing is getting better, and you and I've spent a lot of time together over the last few years, so I can say this pretty confidently, is that you've built an irresistible place to work. You've built a place where people see that they can thrive, that you're not just not concerned just with their FTEs, but with their life and with their family. And that's contagious, and the word gets out. And when I was there to do your retreat earlier in the year, I just noticed a different culture. It's just a different culture than most firms. And I do think that is a major contributor to why it's easier for you to get people.
Well, I think that has something to do with it. But I remember one of the first times I met Darren, I don't know if it was at a Thomson Reuters conference. I don't think it was. I think it was, when I met him, I just had this sense of like, there's something about this. I'd read about him before, but never met him in person. And from a relationship standpoint, I'm like, all right, I'm going to pursue this. And saw him somewhere else. And I remember him telling a crowd of accountants, is like, you don't have an employment problem or a staffing problem. You have a culture problem. And, that was 100% spot on. And one of the things that we've worked really hard here at our firm, and it's taken years, is culture. Everyone has one, whether you realize it or not. Is it the one that you want? And you guys have been instrumental and fundamental in helping us develop what we have here today. So, publicly thank you for that. It's been, you've impacted hundreds of firms in a fantastic way. So, and we really appreciate it. But yeah,
Wow.
It's tough at times. There were some legacy folks here that didn't buy into our vision and what we wanted to do, and that meant some turnover, and that's painful. And you just got to push through. Like it's something that you got to keep working on, and it's got to be a priority.
Yeah. Terry, in the midst of all of these conversations around your culture and with the pandemic and all of that, you and I have had these conversations about your firm growth, but I'd just like to hear you talk a little bit about, are you growing? Do you want to grow? How do you think about growth in the firm right now?
Yeah. I think as an entrepreneur, yes, we want to grow. I think what I focus more on is, how do we want to grow, or is it the right kind of growth, or is it the right time for growth? When we were working through retiring partners, it was all we could do to manage what we had. And the last thing I wanted to do was to, bring on a bunch of clients and not serve them properly. We had some issues with serving the existing client base. And so, we worked hard for a long time. I would be in a partner meeting or a staff meeting, and we would make some changes. And I'm like, look, group, if you've heard this saying, things get worse before they get better. We were in the get worse for a while, probably a couple of years. And then, through working on our culture, through calling clients, through, just talking with my partners about, what kind of folks do we want to work with? Who's our ideal client? And we haven't nailed that perfectly, to be honest, but we're doing better. And, we significantly reduced the number of 1040s that we had in our practice. We raised our fees. So, I would say just probably in the last 12 months, we're at a point now where I feel like we can be more strategic about how we grow. So we're, my partner Richard is the defense contractor, and he's, very active in that community. So we're picking up clients there. So that's something that we want to develop. We've been trying to, we're a legacy firm. We've been around for 50 years. We're still doing the test work and audit work, and there's a lot of that there. We do a good job at it, but we've been trying to develop the BOSS, or the client accounting services, as a sort of as a service line. And I didn't really appreciate. You'd think I would know this, right? As a CPA, it dawned on me one day. I'm like, we can't do this work and set it down for 3 months and then pick it back up. Like, people need to know how much cash they have so they can make payroll. I'm like, what are you doing? And it's a totally different business. It's fundamentally different than a traditional CPA firm. And if I were 30 years younger and starting over, I'd do things a little differently. But, so we've been trying to develop that as a sort of a separate business line. And we've struggled with that, to be honest. But there's a lot of that work out there, and we have some of those engagements, and some of them are going really well. So we've been trying to grow that. We've been trying to grow our defense contractor niche. We do a lot of veterinarians, so that's something that we're working on as well. And I've been looking at, probably, I don't know how wise it is, but looking at some acquisitions. So we've got, there's a lot of smaller firms out there, or I don't know, there's just a lot of opportunities in the acquisition space. And I've heard
Yeah.
several. I had an older partner one time. He said it's way cheaper to buy work than it is to go develop it. And I think Mark Rosenberg says that as well. So that's something that we're looking at. With a couple, trying to decide whether something like that would make sense or not. And then I juxtapose. That's a big word. I get that against. I've got succession issues. Does it make sense to do that at the same time? And so, yeah, trying to sort all that out.
I think, Terry, a lot of things I just heard you say is that, I think there's a misnomer out there that every accounting firm wants to grow. Not all accounting firms necessarily want to grow. I think every accounting firm needs to grow, because if you're not growing, then you're probably going backwards. So then I think the question is, what does growing mean? Right. So growing is not necessarily just adding more to the bucket, because sometimes, that's a big challenge. But I think it's smart growth. It's culling some non-ideal clients. It's continuing to curate your customer base. It's adding more service to existing customers, which we'll probably talk a little bit about. So I love the idea of smart growth, which is what you're hitting on. We need to grow, but are we doing this in the right way at the right time with the right products and all that stuff? Most firms don't think of it that way. So, I commend you for thinking about it like that, because I think that's the exact way to be thinking about this. Because right now there is more business, from what I can tell, than there are people to do the business. What a great time to really rethink, your models, the kind of clients you bring on, and so good timing for that.
Yeah, you look at supply and demand. I think right now, if we're being honest, we should be in the driver's seat on some of that.
Right.
And another thing about our practice, like some of our test clients or some of these larger defense contractors, they can be, that can be a $50,000, $60,000, $100,000 a year client. So in the past 12 months, there's also been a lot of M&A activity. Multiples have been pretty strong with private equity and what have you.
Yep. So,
we probably have one or two of those a year that end up in a sale. So, we've been really close to. My goal is let's try to get to 5 million as one of the growth targets. And I think in last year we were like 4.9799. 4.4. But you have a large client like that, $100,000 of revenue that goes away. It takes a lot of smaller ones to replace that. So, yeah.
Yeah. Terry, when you and I spent some time together earlier in the year, you talked about, in fact, I think you said it at the retreat in front of your team, that what we really need to do and what you really are passionate about is going deeper with your customers. Mm-hmm. And that is, you used a phrase that I'll let you use again because I think it's so apropos, but what do you mean by going deeper with your ideal clients?
Yeah. I think what you were talking, I've in the last couple of retreats, we've talked about, going a mile wide and an inch deep. So with the, all the issues we had with retiring partners and trying to call the client base and all that, everyone was so busy. We were too compliance oriented, doing tax returns and just trying to get this out the door. Like I've been thinking about this. It's about relationships, right? It's about getting to know your clients, and you can't do that without spending time with them or without being a little bit vulnerable. And you guys hit on this all the time on the podcast. We're ultimately in the people business, and we help folks with financial issues. And the more you get to know them, the more you spend time with them. And it's tough for our staff. They just sometimes they want to send an email. And most accountants are introverted. It's just in their DNA. And so to try to help them develop that, to be, bold enough just to have a conversation with somebody. It sounds really simple, but, I think someday we're going to have kids going to college to major in human conversation or, anything like that. But yeah, that's kind of what I was hitting on. Like, we got to be able to give ourselves room to breathe a little bit. If you're working on a review or an audit or a comp, like, look at those numbers, ask some questions, try to understand that business, like what makes it operate. And you go in and you start having those kind of conversations with clients, and that's where they find value. Contractors wanting to set overhead rates and just things like that. Like they, that, and it just leads to more. And the other thing was you're trying to encourage. With COVID, it was tough. You couldn't be physically with people or clients. And,
yeah.
We're doing a lot of things not in the field, but I've always been an advocate of the more, physical face-to-face contact you can have with somebody, like spending time in their space. You hear other conversations and you hear problems and you hear things that come up. And, if you can find a way to not inject yourself, but to participate in that, you go out on a job and you come back with more work. I mean, it's just how it works.
Terry, I think that I think you would agree that what customers or clients want from us is, our attention and an idea here or there to make their lives better. And, nothing overly more complicated than that. They want to hear, they want to feel heard and for us to help solve their problems. But the due date side of our business is so powerful. It kind of flies against the grain, I guess, or it goes against the wind. Having the time to get to know those customers, to holistically serve them, because this audit's due tomorrow because we have a report that follows on with that or whatever it is. So the profession's always had this blend of, our customers want something different from us and we don't have time. So I think that's kind of the big conundrum. How do we bridge that? How are you thinking about bridging that so that your team feels like you can holistically serve a customer or at least approach that?
Yeah, that's a tough one. First of all, we try to talk to them about it and just be honest about, hey, here's, we're an accounting firm, but we're here to help people. We're trying to make their businesses better so that their lives can be better. There's humanity wrapped up in all that. And we've got to give our staff time to breathe. Like the due dates are terrible. They suck like that. If I never had to look at another tax return in my career, that would be wonderful. That pressure and stress that comes around, April and sometimes back in September and October, it is what it is, but
it's real. I mean, it's a real pressure.
It is, but we have to be, as an owner, as a somebody trying to move a firm along, like you've got to be intentional about how much of that are we going to, how much are we going to allow that to impact the way in which we run this firm and the way we operate. They're choices that we make, and the lack of making a change is also a choice. So, we've, at least what we've tried to do is to cut down the number of individual clients where it's only a 1040 and there's a one touch point once a year. Like, we're trying to continue to move out of that space. It's tough. You've got folks you've worked with for a long time, but and just another thing I heard Darren say one time is don't ever go into a meeting alone. And I remembered that. So, take the staff with you. Let them see how that interaction happens, because I was that way. Like, I was very introverted. I grew up on a farm in Southeast Ohio. I didn't know how to do that kind of stuff. And I watched the managers and the partners do that. And you can learn, you can learn how to do that. And so I guess that's what we try to do.
I think that this is what's making hiring easier for you guys, is because you're putting thought into to the volume. You're putting thought into how you think about customers. And that's where people want to work, Terry. They want to work for somebody who cares.
Well, we're not perfect. So, I saw that, what's the state of the firm? Well, I can tell you what it is today, but it can all change. And, when you've got 25 people, 2 or 3 people leave, that leaves a big hole. And our most important thing, I think, is our people. Number two is our clients. And having that right group of people, like I feel like we're in a good spot at the moment, and it's taken a while to get here, but the voices, you hear in your head sometimes, like, oh, what if this happens, or what if this happens, and you hear somebody may be upset, and I don't know, it's there's just turnover in our profession too, and I think that's okay, right? Because new people come in and they bring new ideas and growth, and if the people that end up leaving, as long as they make a move that's good for them, that's okay too. So,
yeah.
But yeah.
Terry, when I think about a modern firm, I know this sounds like a trite thing to say, but it really is true. When I think about a modern firm, I think about what you guys are doing. And I really appreciate you giving us some time today, but I also appreciate you just having the guts to be an entrepreneur instead of just a business owner, to go out and build something that puts people first and that is intentional. And I knew it'd be fun to have you on today because it's always fun when we're together. And I knew you would give our audience something to shoot for because I really think you're leading your own team, but you're also leading the profession in a way. It's time to do things differently. And you guys have you'll tell me it's not perfect. And I know that's your heart. But the pursuit of putting people first and the pursuit of building something that puts life as a priority is what makes you modern. And really appreciate you being on today. And I can't wait to end up at Paragon Steakhouse again with you in Dayton. Shout out to those guys at that little bar having a great old fashioned and a big steak.
That sounds awesome. Thanks for having me, guys. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks, Terry.
Thanks for listening to the Modern Firm Podcast. Look forward to the next time. Glad you listened today. See you next time.